Hey everybody, welcome back to the I Play 2 podcast. I'm your host, Rob Adler. This week, former college quarterback and professional wrestler Erik Watts joins the show. As a senior at Louisville, he threw for nearly 1,300 yards, including 179 yards and a touchdown in a win over Southern Miss. After that, Erik transitioned into pro wrestling where he worked for WCW, WWE, ECW, and TNA. And he owns wins over the likes of Diamond Dallas Page, Steve Austin, and Kevin Nash. His father, Bill Watts, wrestled for a quarter century and had multiple world title matches against the likes of Luthez, Bruno Sammartino, and Vern Gagne. And later on, Bill ran both the Mid-South and UWF promotions, which helped launch the careers of future stars such as Sting, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Junkyard Dog, and Dr. Death Steve Williams. Erik, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, man. Life is good.
What are you up to these days now that your pro wrestling career is long over?
I've got a company or two that I watch over. One's a credit card processing company, and then I have Megawatts Ventures that does promotions and public appearances and speaking gigs and things like that. And just enjoy life, try to keep up with my kids. Shoot, I'm blessed. The other day, I went out and hung out with my mom, my brother, played backgammon. After that, went and saw some friends. The day before that was at a men's breakfast with Lex Luger, celebrating a friend of ours' 60th birthday at this men's breakfast. So just stay busy and keep moving.
I gotta ask, who's the best backgammon player in the family?
My mom. It's no bueno, my friend. She kicks my booty.
You mentioned you were hanging out with your kids. If I'm not mistaken, one of them played college basketball at the Naval Academy, correct?
Yeah, my daughter, she's a beast. She flew in for about 24 hours just to hang out because she got deployed. She's a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. She'll be elevated to first lieutenant in May, but she's just been deployed for 2.5 months. So she wanted to come in, hang out with some family before she had to fly out.
Since you were a college athlete, she was a college athlete. Which was harder, you going out on the field or watching your daughter play?
Ooh, great question. I would absolutely say it's watching my daughter play. When I was out there, I was in control and enjoying life. When you're there watching your kids play, you want every shot to go in, every rebound, everything to happen perfectly for them. You want them to enjoy all their hard work and the time they put in to sport and their craft. And it is so amazing on those days when you're just in the zone and everything's dropping and everything's happening. And yet, as a father, it can be so frustrating when you're off and you wish that you could just call a timeout and get a huddle and talk to your daughter and say, hey, listen, just reset. You're the best out there. You've got control of all that. But I got to be honest, they say the hardest space to conquer in the world is the 6 inches between your ears. Prime example, I went out 2 weeks ago, hadn't been playing much golf. I played once this year and shot an 88. And to me, an 88 is a great round. So put it on the books to play the next weekend and swear to goodness, it was like I'd forgot everything about golf. Just the worst shots. It was horrible. And at any time as an athlete, you think you can just step back and reset and everything's going to come back perfect. And it's not that way because every circumstance is different. Your lie is different. The weather's different. The wind is different. The flag sticks in different spots. It's one thing to be frustrated with your play. It's another when you know how it feels to be an athlete and you watch someone that struggles for a minute and wants to bring them back. So it's definitely tougher to watch her. Last year, she won the Women's Basketball Association's championship. She also won MVP. She was really excited about playing this year, but she had to deploy out of the country, so she couldn't play. But she got a ring and all that, and we got to go watch her play the All-Star game last year in Charlotte. So it's all fun, but it's definitely tougher watching her than me being out on the field myself.
I didn't know you were a golfer. How did your love of golf blossom initially?
It was actually a mistake. I'm from Tulsa, and Tulsa's got some great golf courses, but I was so busy playing so many sports. My life growing up, I was either studying, working on the farm, or playing sports because my father basically told me if you don't have straight A's, you don't play sports. And sports is a luxury. So I amateur wrestled, played basketball, played football, did some track. So I worked very hard and very diligent on my studies. I also worked very hard on my crafts, the different sports. And I also was an entrepreneur. I started my first business when I was about 12, 13 years old, the fireworks stand business. So spending the time respecting that what my mom and dad had told me, this is a privilege, and that the first thing that's most important is your academics. So everything was very serious. I can't tell you the endless amateur wrestling camps I went to, or football camps I went to, or basketball camps I went to throughout the years. So when I got into pro wrestling, Buff Bagwell had asked me, he said, yeah, have you ever played golf? I go, nope, I don't know anything about it. He goes, you want to play? I go, yeah. And he goes, well, let's go to the driving range. And I said, you know what, dude? Everything I have done has been intense and it's been trying to be the best all the time. I said, man, I just want to go out there and hit. He's like, you don't get it. You just don't hit the ball. And I said, well, I'm going to try. And I remember he said, well, if that's the way we're going to do it, we're going to count every stroke. And I think the first time I went golfing, I shot like 118 or 119. But from what I understand, that was very good because you hit one off the tee box and it goes out of bounds. You're line 3 off the tee box. We didn't just drop it like so many people did. And every putt had to go into the cup. So we scored everything. The funny thing is, the idea was that I was going to do this sport and it was going to be the only sport in which I didn't take too serious. But I got to be honest with you, brother. Within a few months, it was serious. We were playing all the time. And I mean, all the people that we played with, Sting and Luger and Dustin Rhodes and Larry Zbyszko. And there was a good amount of guys that loved golf and loved playing golf. And it got some of the times to where, like, if we had a Florida tour that was 10 days, sometimes we would grab the wives and throw our sticks in the car and we'd find a way to play a round or two when we were on the road, which is very hard to do, but we did it and we had a blast.
Out of all the wrestlers you played golf with, who's the one you would never want to make a bet with?
Believe it or not, the guy that it just so happens that he would find a way to beat you was actually Larry Zbyszko. I love playing with Pee Wee, the referee, and Dustin. Dustin was a hoot. He gets so mad, throw clubs. I remember one time we were in Florida. Dustin had actually hit a shot and got mad and broke his club. And I'm like, oh, dude, you don't need to do that. So he went to throw. Well, I went and picked up the club, just the shaft. I put it in his bag. And I said, hey, next time you do something that you're mad at, just grab this club out of the bag and throw it into the woods or into the water. And he's like, okay. And we were on a tee box in Florida, water on the left, alligators around. It was me, Dustin, Sting, and Mark Bagwell. And Dustin just goes off, gets mad, goes to the bag, grabs this stick that looked like it was his driver, throws it in the water. We're laughing. And out of nowhere, bro, Dustin comes back and out of the edge of his mouth, he goes, feed me. We all start feeding in. He starts clotheslining us. He backdropped one of us onto the tee box. There's people that are just staring. People have their phones out, calling the police. They legit thought we were throwing down on the tee box. It was hilarious. We got up, we started looking around, we got in our carts, we drove off, and there was just people looking. Not too much later, Marshall came out and spoke to us and all that. We just said, hey, we're having fun. So we didn't get kicked off the course or anything, but I could only imagine the people that were watching what they were thinking.
I did not have you taking a clothesline from Dustin Rhodes on a golf course for this show.
I think Sting called for a backdrop. I think he actually took a backdrop. He clotheslined all of us, fed up for punches, chops, and I think that one of us went to go clothesline him and told him to duck it and then turned around and got backdropped. It hurt like hell, but God almighty, it was so funny, bro. It was so funny.
I can only imagine what those other people were thinking as they were watching.
Well, some of them, right, you could tell were probably wrestling fans because you got Sting with these bleach hair. Dustin, me, we're all big people, right? But the people that had no idea, they're on phones and pointing and taking pictures, and they knew there was going to be a lawsuit and police and people were going to be arrested.
That is just absolutely wild. And I'm sure you have other stories. What's another one that sticks out to you?
Oh man, that's a tough one, my friend. That's a tough one because I have got to see and experience things so few humans get to experience. I've traveled so many places. The first time I actually performed in Tokyo, it wasn't pro wrestling. It was called the Coca-Cola Classic, and it was a preseason game between Louisville and Syracuse in the sold-out Tokyo Dome. We were there for about a week, a great experience. So my first official college start was the Horseshoe at Ohio State on ESPN. And then my father, pro wrestling, and my mom said, hey, don't brag and find out what other people do and this, that, and the other. But I'd ask her occasionally, like, hey, can we just invite my dad maybe to come to show and tell? And my mom's like, he works a lot. And by the third grade, she said, hey, you've been very good, son. You got show and tell coming up pretty soon? I said, yes, ma'am. And she goes, okay, well, I'm going to bring you something for show and tell. Just tell the teacher when she sees me looking through the little glass by the door to have you come up so you can do show and tell. So the teacher said, hey, your mom's here, your show and tell's here. And I had no idea what it was. And I stood up to present my show and tell. My mom brought Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was my show and tell, man. And then he hung with us and ate lunch in the cafeteria. It was the craziest thing. So just starting out in life and seeing people that were bigger than life, my father and Junkyard Dog and Dick Slater and Dickie Murdoch and Dusty Rhodes' American Dream. And I remember one time my dad and Dusty Rhodes got a little bit drunk and decided to go down and get in my dad's car and go shoot up speed signs and stuff. And then the police came because people heard all these gunshots and the sheriff's like, Mrs. Watts, we got to keep them from shooting up the signs. We'll pay for them. We'll pay for them. I'm so sorry. So seen a lot, done a lot. So for me to pinpoint on stories, bro, you and me are only going to do this for an hour. I could be telling you stories for 5 hours, just back to back to back, because there's been so many really memorable and cool and incredible stories of my life, both challenging and successful. I wouldn't know where to start, man.
Well, all I have to say is if I had Andre the Giant for my show and tell, my show and tell would have been a lot better.
Amen. I hear you. It was a good one, man. Then for him to come out into the cafeteria and sit on a table and actually eat with us, the kids were just baffled. What would be considered a wedding ring on your left hand, Andre took off his ring. He had a silver dollar. The silver dollar fit through his ring. Think about that. His second finger was the circumference of a silver dollar. It was just incredible.
Since we're talking Andre, I have heard some legendary drinking stories. Were you ever witness to one of those?
When he had come in on this trip, he always loved my dad's boots. And my dad had said, hey, I'm going to buy you some Lucchese ostrich boots. My dad had brought him in to give him the boots. And part of the thing was the Tulsa World newspaper had asked my dad if they could go out to dinner and sit and speak with him, do an interview. And my dad set it up that he goes, you can come, you can take pictures from afar. You have to pay for dinner. And after we're done with dinner, you can ask a few questions, but then it has to be on the front page the next morning. The crazy part of the story is my dad special ordered these ostrich boots, which were very, very expensive. And when they measured his foot, they said it was a 23 quadruple E. When the boots came in, Andre's foot wouldn't fit in the boots. So they had to remake them. My dad went off on this place. It was called Drysdale's. They had two of them. They're just huge, huge places. When I say huge, like the size of a Walmart. And they go, well, what are we going to do with these boots? And he said, I would take a picture with Andre and I'd get a glass case and I'd stick one of them here and one of them in the Oklahoma City store. And it became such a hot tourist thing that even if people weren't coming to buy boots or whatever, people would drop in there all the time to take a picture of this boot that didn't fit Andre the Giant. So Andre was a huge drinker. And so that night he ate 3 T-bone steaks, 2 baked potatoes, a salad, drank 104 Coors Lights and a fifth of Jack Daniels.
104?
It was crazy when he'd sit in our house. I would watch him when he was drinking beers. He'd take his finger on his left hand and push the can up in his right hand because you couldn't see the can. His hand was bigger than a can. A matter of fact, last time I saw Andre, WCW, my dad had brought in some legends, and my dad said, "Hey, go get Andre. He's at the hotel at the CNN Center." So I went to the front desk and said, "No, he's checked out. He checked out about an hour ago." I'm like, "Oh, God." And it was probably, I would say, about 10 a.m. And I'm like, where in the hell would he be? And then I said, "Where's the bar?" They go, "Well, the bar's not open." I go, "I don't care. Where's the bar?" They go, "Upstairs." And I walked up there and I see this huge man sitting with his back to me. And what he would love to do is a lot of times he would make a display of these drinks. When I got to him, there was 14 bottles of wine. He wasn't phased at all. And I said to the guy, "I got it. I'll pay for it." He goes, "No, it's been my honor and privilege to sit here and serve Andre the Giant." And then Andre looked at me. He said, "Boss wants me." I said, "Yeah, boss wants you." He goes, "Okay, Erik." And he got up. And at that time, he had those cane things that kind of like went on your forearms to walk. His back was really bad by that point. But stood up, went down the lobby, got in my car, took him to center stage, and he talked to my dad. But it was nothing for him to drink 14 bottles of wine before 10 o'clock in the morning.
That's not a guy you wanted to get into a drinking contest with.
No, the hell you didn't.
So taking a bit of a step back here, because you had mentioned that you had played multiple sports growing up. How did your interest in football come to be?
As a kid, you're always having friends over and you're throwing footballs in the yard. And I could punt the ball, kick the ball, throw the ball pretty far. And so my dad used to put me in the punt, pass, and kick contests. And the funny thing about it is, my dad had told me, he goes, "No matter what position you're in, I want you to be punting and kicking for the main purpose that when you get in street fights, I want your legs to be very, very strong. So when you kick someone's face off, I want a lot of power behind that." And then we had to start amateur wrestling. The whole idea for my father was for us to be the best amateur wrestlers and best athletes. But even though I played outside linebacker and quarterback, the reason why he wanted me to kick was clearly just to decapitate someone's face in a street fight. So we didn't always choose what we did. And when I played back in the day, when I first started playing, if you were over a certain weight, you had to be a lineman. And I wasn't a thick guy, but I was a tall guy. So I was a offensive tackle there at the beginning and then moved to tight end because I could catch real well. I just remember, I think it was like seventh grade or eighth grade. I came to my father. I said, "Dad," I said, "the problem is I can't really control the game because our quarterback sucks. And if he doesn't throw me the ball, I can't change anything." He goes, "Well, so then what do you suppose?" I go, "I guess I'll have to be a quarterback." He goes, "Okay." And the next day I came out and I was a quarterback. And Bixby, where I originally went, except for my last 2 years, I think they won 5 straight titles in the largest class in Oklahoma. I mean, it's a powerhouse. And I was starting quarterback in the ninth grade, but I was also outside linebacker. I also kicked. I also returned punts and kicks too. And I love playing basketball too. So the sports thing was just something that just evolved. Maybe it was just expected. I'm not sure.
You had a pool growing up. I did too. How much fun was that?
We had what they call a show dive. So the diving board was probably about 4 feet high, maybe 5 feet high at max. And I would just spend hours doing doubles, double front, double back, gainers, side gainers, 1.5 with full twists. I loved it. I loved just going crazy and having a good time. And that's why when Vince saw me try out, he was just amazed. He's like, "You can jump to the top rope and do a reverse sunset flip, not looking, land and roll a guy up," because I've never seen anything like that from a guy 6'6" and 290. So the athleticism was there. The sky was the limit. I was never told what I couldn't do, and my parents expected the best. But again, going back to the foundation was that where so many kids, their parents go, you got to play, you got to play, you got to play. And then even if they're not doing well in school, the parents are more interested in the sports. Whereas with my parents, like I said, sports were a luxury. So I believe that we played it at a different level due to the fact that it was a privilege to be out there. It was a privilege on the field. And at any time, if we did not do what we needed to do in class, it could be taken away. So I think that gave us as athletes a different perspective. We never cared how hot it was or how long practice was because we had to earn the ability to even practice in the classrooms. So I think that's what made us pretty competitive and pretty good in sports. And that same theory, I raised my kids. My daughter graduated with a 4.5 grade point average, and she had completed, I believe, 27 hours of college by the time she graduated high school.
That's very impressive.
It was legendary. She was travel basketball, she swam, played piano, she did some lacrosse, but it was the same principle. You had to earn the right to participate in sports by doing what you're supposed to do academically first.
So, speaking of earning the right, how did the recruiting process work for you, and how did you end up earning a scholarship at Louisville?
I was one of the highest ranked athletes in the nation. I'm not trying to say this being cocky. My recruiting process was probably different from many, many kids. I was being looked at in basketball as well. But in football, I was highly recruited as a outside linebacker, and I was highly recruited as a quarterback. So early on, my mom was very smart about this. She goes, hey, let's take 5 or 10 schools you're interested in. Because I would get so much mail that the mailman said, we got to do something different. When I say so much mail, I'm saying hundreds of letters a week. People don't understand there's Division One, there's Division Two, there's Division Three. There is so many colleges out there, and they're all going to try to get your attention somehow through these letters. So what we did is we asked the post office to hold all my mail and deliver it once a week. And so they would do these huge mail bags and they would drop them off. We wanted to appreciate things, but what we did is after the first week of all this mail, my mother asked me to then write back to every school that I was not interested at. And this is before computers and this is before all this other stuff, so you couldn't just print it. I would write back, thank you so much for your interest in me. It's an honor and a privilege. However, I already have the 7 or 8 schools I'm interested in. So please stop recruiting me and focus on others that you may be able to get. Now, once we did that letter back to those colleges, then we had a list on the post office so that they would send back anything coming in from people. So if they kept on sending it, I wouldn't receive it because it was just too much mail. My biggest issue was trying to figure out on a few of the colleges, were they honestly after me as a quarterback, or were they saying they wanted me as a quarterback, but they had all intentions of keeping me at outside linebacker because I wanted to be a quarterback. Matter of fact, University of Oklahoma, where my father played, they were all over me. But I knew what they were going to do. My dad was a defensive tackle. They were going to push me to be a defensive tackle. And as much as I loved Oklahoma and the tradition and all the national championships, I did not want to play defensive end. I wanted to play quarterback. So the Oklahoma was not on my list at all. So it was a very different way that I selected and chose where I was going to go and what I was going to do.
Because I'm not sure your paths crossed, but I think they did. Was Jay Gruden still at Louisville when you got there?
Jay was the starting quarterback when I got there. The year before I got there, he had actually had one of the most gruesome knee injuries I'd ever seen in my life. It was as bad or worse than Theismann's leg break. So he dropped back and was going to pass a ball, and a defensive tackle tackled him at his knee. And when it did, it broke in half. And literally, the tackle had his calf, and Jay was laying on the back of the guy, and they literally had to come and pull Jay up so that the guy can crawl out from under Jay's leg and then laid him back. When I saw it, I was sick. And Jay said, Eric, I was so lucky. As soon as he broke my leg, it severed all the nerves and stuff, and it went dead immediately. So when I came in, it was very different because Jay had come off of a total knee construction. So when I was recruited by Howard Schnellenberger, he said, my quarterbacks, I redshirt the first year so they can learn the system because the system is so in depth, which it was. And so that was the plan. However, I had caught the attention of Howard Schnellenberger and the coaching staff to the point where I would travel as the third string quarterback. So basically, what they did was they said, let's say we have a good season. Let's say Jay gets injured in the fourth or fifth game and we've got a good season and he's out. We will then make a decision and then we'll probably burn your red shirt and you'll have to go in. I was like, wow. But Jay did very well. He did not get re-injured. What just an incredible quarterback. What an incredible football mind. From there, he set all the records in the Arena League. And for all intents and purposes, I believe he was a fantastic head coach. And his brother, Chucky, he did very well in coaching as well.
So fun connection for me. Jay's son, Joey, is actually an assistant basketball coach. And I had him on the podcast a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow. Too cool. It's kind of funny because I don't know if he'll remember this, but when I was at college, I had a very good friend named Sherry. And I remember we were hanging out one night, just like, we're such good friends. Why haven't we ever gone out on a date? And I said, Sherry, I said, listen, I love you to death. You're such a good friend. No, you're a good girl. You're great. I like going out and partying and having a good time. It just wouldn't work. And she's like, what do you mean it wouldn't work? And I'm like, no, I'd rather be your friend, period. Beautiful, classy, smart, the total package. And I said, listen, let me do this. You need kind of like a more laid back person that's not going out and hooting, hollering and drinking and going crazy. You need someone more low key. She goes, oh my gosh. I said, listen, I got a buddy of mine, Jay Gruden, and he doesn't have a girlfriend. All he does is watch game film. He's so laid back. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And she's like, you're literally trying to pawn me off. I go, Sherry, I'm just telling you. I know your personality, and I think I could be a matchmaker for you. And I went to Jay, and Jay's like, what? This is kind of weird. You're setting me up on a date? Like, you don't think I can get a date? I said, Jay, shut up. Just relax. Just go out on a date with a girl and see what you think. No, I said, dude, come on. I said, she's incredible. All right, I'll just go on this one date. And that's who we married. And they're together this day.
That's a very cool story. Erik Watts, pro wrestler, football player, matchmaker.
Matchmaker, mic drop.
Well, if there's anyone that knows a matchmaker and a booker, that would be your dad. So you learned well.
He's a legend, man. One of the coolest parts of my career was being around some of the greatest matchmakers and bookers ever. Jerry Jarrett and Vern Gagne, Gorilla Monsoon and Hiro Matsuda, Vince McMahon, Dusty Rhodes' American Dream, Ernie and Big Cat Ladd. I mean, just all these guys, and they would just pull me aside and tell me stories about my father and what he did and how he made them successful or how he changed their trajectory in wrestling. That was probably one of the coolest things that have ever happened to me. I was at an autograph session a long time ago in New Orleans for WrestleMania. Jump in the back of the car to catch a ride, and here's two other guys from WWE. And one of them said, hey, Eric, we got about a 30-minute drive. Let me tell you what Bill Watts did for me in my career. And they just start talking. Me riding on the road with Junkyard Dog or Ron Simmons or Shawn Michaels or the Road Warriors. And then sitting back and listening to Ric Flair talk about him. And just to hear the stories of how he made the people or gave them their names or the insight he gave them. And then my favorites were once in a blue moon when I was in Atlanta. I think it happened twice. My dad would go, hey, let's go pick up a few cases of beer, throw in the cooler. Let's go to Dream's house. And so we'd be sitting on the back porch at Dusty Rhodes' house, and they're sitting there just having beers. I'm the designated driver. Brother, the stories those guys told, I mean, for hours, unbelievable. But again, my dad's a very hard man. So there was also many people that didn't like him as far as his personality because it was his way or the highway. And he was very hard on his talent because he was more of a coach, like a Bear Bryant. And he didn't mince words, brother. I mean, he did not mince words with anybody. But even the people that he might have rubbed wrong, or they would have said, well, he could have been nicer, still were in awe of him as a booker, as a promoter, and as a pro wrestler. So that is something that was just a thrill for me.
Out of all those stories, what's one for you that's pretty cool?
I don't have just one, I really don't, because there is just so many. I was at WCW, and once in a blue moon, WCW and WWE would run two towns right next to each other, Baltimore and Philly. Sting smarted me up and said, hey, the guys stay at the Marriott. Instead of us staying here and then driving in, why don't we drive and see some of the guys at WWE? And so here we are. I mean, the place is slammed. They got red ropes for us to go. They got an elevator just for us. The marks can't follow us up to our rooms. I go put my bag up in the room, come downstairs, and as soon as I walk in, about the third stool is Macho Man. And I came up to Macho. I said, sir, if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Erik Watts. He goes, brother, I know who you are. I said, I tape every Raw, every match, and when I'm home, I watch. I said, Macho, I've never seen anyone that works as hard as you. It doesn't matter if you got a job guy or if you've got a main event, you are trying to outperform every other talent in the back every night because you want to give the fans the greatest experience. And he goes, brother, sit down. Let me talk to you. And he sat there and basically told me the whole story. He came to Tampa and to minor league baseball and met my dad at Matsuda's and asked him, said, hey, I want to try pro wrestling. And basically my dad said, well, you're an athlete, blah, 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 blah. And so they trained and he did all this stuff. And he came to my dad. It's coming baseball time. Do you think I could get in the ring once? And my dad's like, hell yeah, you're going to get in the ring. He goes, yeah, but I mean, if they find out I wrestled, I'll be fired. My dad, he goes, have you ever heard of Parts Unknown? And he goes, what? Our masked men, we announce them from Parts Unknown. And he goes, what? We're just going to put you under a mask and give you a fake name and no one will ever know it's you. And so he went out there and wrestled. And I don't know how many times he wrestled. And he came to my father and he said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And my dad said, and I think that you will be one of the greats. And that's how Mach got into wrestling. And I remember him saying, son, take my number down. He goes, anything you need at any time, you call me. He goes, I don't care. You're at WCW, WWE, you need something, you call me. I said, yes, sir. I never, ever called him. I never asked for any favors or anything like that. But that's how great of a guy he was and how he wanted to pay it forward for what my father did for him. He was willing to do whatever he could for me. What a great honor and what a great feeling to have someone of his caliber offer that to me based on what my father did for him.
Although we were just talking Randy Savage and he was gone at this point, were you still in WWE for the Kliq incident?
Yeah, Madison Square Garden is when Kevin Nash and Razor were walking out that night after, and Hunter and Shawn Michaels hugged them after the match and broke kayfabe. And I was standing right in the back, and Vince was right next to me. We were watching through the curtain. He said, mother, bleep, 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 bleep. I mean, he was pissed.
Since I know we're running short on time, I got two more things to ask you about. And the first one is, since you mentioned Vince McMahon, and I know you get asked about it a lot, and I'm sure it's not your favorite topic, but how did the Tekno Team 2000 gimmick happen?
I'll tell you right now, that's an easy one. At the time we were coming in, Vince had hired a marketing research company to research names and what sticks and what people remember and all this stuff. So, this marketing research, one of the things they found was names that rhymed, people remember more often. So, if you think about it, it was like Skip and Zip, the Body Donnas, Troy and Travis, Tekno Team 2000. Bart and Billy Gunn, Smoking Guns. Like every person that came out, their names rhymed, which I was like, oh God, this is horrible, but whatever. And also at the time, because they've always had the girls in the back that make suits and outfits, there was a famous designer, and Vince had contracted her to make our outfits, which was really why they were so wild. And it took them forever. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times we flew up to New York to be sized and looked at. But let me say this, it was total top class. But I'm going to tell you, they took forever to get the outfits going and all that. Matter of fact, Vince was so excited about me and Chad that he said, I can't take it anymore. These outfits and your ring music is taking too long. Would you guys just fly up and wrestle a match for me at Madison Square Garden and Boston Garden? We're like, yeah, just wear your football stuff, the cutoff pants like you did for the tryout. I said, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I just got to see you guys wrestle again. You guys were awesome. And so we went up there. It just so happened that the Boston Garden was the night after they retired the parquet floor that Larry Bird played on. That was killer. But realistically, me personally, I was very confused. I understand what Vince wanted. Vince saw two guys, 6'5, 6'6, 290 pounds, with incredible vertical leaping and jumping abilities. And I could do all the flips and the twists and the turns. And we were doing things 6'6 that no one was doing. Double leapfrog, double hip toss, throw your partner on top of people. I was catapulting Chad. We'd throw someone in the corner, and then Chad would go to the corner and come to me, and I would toss him. I'd be backwards and toss him over my head onto people. I mean, the guy was like coming from 10 feet on top of people. I mean, people had never seen that. They might have seen some luchadors do it, right? But now you've got these two 6'6 guys doing it. But the idea was the tag team of the future, Tekno Team 2000. I was a little confused based on the fact that I am from Oklahoma, so I am somewhat country sounding. Hey, this is Troy Tekno, y'all. It didn't really ring in my head that way. And had Chad Fortune not messed up and had we stayed there together, I'd come up with a new idea to where we were going to do like SEAL team, which I presented to Vince, where I wanted to put the bands around our necks, like the Navy SEALs do if they're on mics where they're talking to each other. I was wanting to have that around our necks and then have it go over a synthesizer. So when we spoke, it would be more robotic. And Vince loved the idea. It's just that Chad wore out his welcome and they got rid of Chad Fortune and therefore it didn't make it.
Originally, what was the plan for you and Chad as Tekno Team 2000?
Our fourth or fifth match was going to be on Raw after the Europe tour, and we were going to wrestle Bart and Billy Gunn, and they were going to drop the titles to us. That was the plan. And then Bart and Billy, rightfully so, went and bitched to all the talent, and the talent got into Vince's ear and all this other stuff, and then they switched that trajectory, which I don't blame them. Bart and Billy Gunn had busted their ass for so long to earn those belts for two guys like us just to walk in and just take them from them. And Vince was going to do it. But before we went out, once our outfits were there and all this other stuff, I remember one of the guys going, so who's Troy and who's Travis? And we were laughing so hard that I think what happened is we said, Erik, heads it's Troy, tails it's Travis. And they flipped a coin and it just so happened that the coin landed and I was Troy and Chad was Travis. I mean, and literally that was an hour before we even walked out for our first TV match. So it was one of those things like a hurry up and wait. They took forever to get the outfits. They took forever for all this. And this crazy stuff. They had these boots for us. They had made Chad's boots where the calf was backwards. and they zipped in the back. Mine were fine. So we had to take electric tape and tape them. His pants were too short. We were just amazed. We're like, God, you had all this time to make this outfit, and these outfits are just the shit. And a matter of fact, we did TV. I think we were wrestling in California the next night, and literally they flew us out earlier to San Antonio to the boot specialist there so that he could fix the boots. So we flew in limo to his shop. The guy cut them, fixed them, made them right, and then we flew out to California to wrestle. So it was a kind of crazy time. So you'd think that they put in all this money for all this research and all the music and all the things, but it wasn't a clean rollout, put it that way, as far as the gimmick. But I knew they weren't going to let me use my name because then they couldn't trademark it. I didn't care what they called us. Thank God I wasn't Doink the Clown.
There's a good one. Doink the Clown, Matt Bourne. But real quick, everybody kind of knew you as Erik Watts. And I view this as Chavo Guerrero when he became Kerwin White. Did anyone think, hey, this might not work because everybody knew you weren't Troll?
No, because everyone knew that Dustin Rhodes is Dustin Rhodes, but he was Gold Dust. They had a track record with some of the guys. Vince, all he wanted to do is he wanted to make sure that there was no trademarking problems for royalties and residuals. And it's just like right now, I'm baffled. To me, why wouldn't Braun Breaker just be Steiner, the legends of the Steiner brothers? But then the funny thing about it is Steiner is not even the real last name, but Charlotte Flair is Charlotte Flair. So I don't totally understand why they do certain things, but there are rumors that my daughter may end up at WWE, and so if she does, who knows what her name will be.
Erik, I want to thank you so much for joining the I Play 2 podcast today and talking about your stories inside the ring, outside the ring, your football career. Thank you so much. Take care, and I hope to catch up with you soon.
Thank you. You too.